Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We'll now proceed with our first round of questions, and I will start with a few and then turn it over to the ranking member. The first question is to you, Mr. Walsh. This subcommittee has led efforts to save taxpayer dollars by encouraging agencies to modernize their outdated and obsolete IT systems. These aging systems not only increase government costs, they can also jeopardize our national security. What specific risks has GAO identified that are presented by DHS's aging IT infrastructure? And can you provide an example, please?
The general risks to running legacy systems are risks to your security, mission needs, staffing, and cost. In a specific example, as has already been mentioned, FEMA is working on its grants management modernization program. That program is to replace a series of legacy systems that currently are experiencing the problems we're describing about today. They have manual processes that are a burden for recipients, a burden for the agency, and are slowing down the response to disasters. If that legacy system were to fully go off the rails, a disaster without grants from the government would be very difficult for our citizens.
Thank you. This is a question to Mr. Hassan and to Mr. Walsh. It's deeply concerning that DHS relies on outdated technology for some of its most important work. I heard the testimony about progress you're making, but there is still really important work where we're using outdated technology. Mission critical systems should be an IT modernization priority, but different agencies have different ideas about what makes an IT system mission critical. So, Mr. Hassan, how does DHS currently prioritize which systems to modernize?
Well, Chairwoman, thank you. As we look at establishing modernization priorities, we are looking to those that fit into three categories: those with that present significant cybersecurity risk, those that present opportunities to improve the experience the public has interacting with DHS services, and those that present opportunities to improve how our employees do their job every day and enable them to do that more effectively. On the cyber front, one tool that we have developed to aid us in this is a unified cybersecurity maturity model that evaluates all of our IT systems across the department on a number of different cyber axes and enables us to best identify areas of risk to prioritize our modernization efforts.
Thank you. So, Mr. Walsh, what is GAO's criteria for determining if something is mission critical?
So we have a two-tier test. The first looks at whether the functions of a given system are unique to the agency. If it's unique, then any sort of damage or disruption, what kind of impact it would have to the mission of that agency. Second tier, systems who, if they were damaged or the data were lost, misused, or disclosed, would also have a debilitating impact upon the agency.
Okay. So, Mr. Hassan, could DHS adopt GAO's mission-critical criteria to help decide what IT modernization projects to prioritize?
Absolutely, Chair, and I believe we look at very similar criteria across our planning efforts.
I think it's a really important area to focus on and really try to make sure that that is, in fact, how the agency is approaching it. Mr. Oshanaye and Mr. Armstrong, a question for the two of you. Let's discuss a couple of examples of systems that are critical to DHS's mission but rely on aging technology. Since 2009, TSA has used the secure flight system to spot potential threats to commercial airline travel within and outside of the U.S. This system connects to many other agency systems to identify individuals who are ineligible to fly. So, Mr. Oshanaye, can you walk us through what would happen if the secure flight system were to go offline, fail, or be even partially inaccessible?
Thank you, Chairman. Similar as Mr. Walsh spoke, the system has been in existence for a while, but calling it a legacy system wouldn't be the same as a mainframe. That system is constantly updated, and if that system would go offline, we do have an offline policy or process where we can operate for a certain amount of time. We also test that scenario for COOP to make sure that if we did have an outage, we'd still be able to operate and protect travelers.
But what would happen? I mean, I understand there's a workaround, and I made that comment in my opening, but a workaround has its cost too. What if it were to go offline or fail or be even partially inaccessible? And let's say your workaround didn't work, right? What happens?
In a catastrophic event, or if you would exceed the COOP timeframe, it would hinder our ability to see travelers who are a danger to other travelers.
Okay, thank you. Another example of DHS's aging IT infrastructure is FEMA's system that enables the flows of funds and services to disaster survivors, and Mr. Walsh was just getting at that. Mr. Armstrong, if this system went down, how would Americans in need because of a natural disaster access FEMA services?
Chairman Hassan, can I ask to clarify that? Because Mr. Walsh talked about grants management.
Fair,
And
different.
I want to make sure that you're not referring to individual assistance so that I answer your correct
Well,
question.
so let's talk about individual assistance. What would happen in a natural disaster? Access to the individual assistance system goes down.
So individual assistance, as you can imagine, is critical to the mission of FEMA. It's one of the systems that we rely on to give immediate recovery to that survivor during the recovery and response period of a disaster. So without that capability in place, we would have to resort to manual processes, which could either slow things down or prevent us from adequately addressing the needs of the individual during that critical time.
You could have a really significant and at times really dangerous impact, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.